Hey guys, it's me back with an important topic. Aim training, does it really work? So there is this guy called Dr. Who, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, who is an esports medicine specialist and apparently who has served in major organizations like CLT, Immortals and Meeber in CS. And he, along with some other professionals, came up with a company called 1HP and is publishing articles related to esports health and performance enhancement. They have also covered a topic regarding aim training, whether it is beneficial or not, and which routine is the best. I'm making this video mostly for me to understand this entire article because it's hella long, but also for you guys to take in some key points that may be useful to you. This is from an actual medical specialist who worked for professional orgs, so this article might be kinda useful. It also states that it takes science into consideration, so this proof is backed up with science. They divided the article into two specific parts. The first part discussed the actual physical and neurological effects. The second part discusses strategies that could help you train your aim. I have put some timestamps in the description, so it should be more easier for you to browse through. Let's discuss part 1, which is, does aim training really work? Backed up with science. They start off the article crediting Aimer7 and Cates. These two coaches had established papers regarding their theses on aim training. You can check the papers out in the description. Many serious players are probably aware of the Aimer7 paper already. I'll cover it in a later video, but if you want to know the best routine for aim training, you should check their papers out. They give a detailed training routine that you can use for aim training. They first define virtual aim as the ability of a human to control a medium, which in PC case would be the mouse, to direct a cursor at a target. Then they divide virtual aiming into two subcomponents, tracking and click timing. Tracking is where you are trying to follow a target with your crosshair, and click timing is you clicking on a target at the right time. There is a detailed division of this into dynamic and static types, not really that important for us, but it is important for coaches, these terminologies. They go on to describe that aim is a skill, and skill is defined as the ability to consistently perform coordinated movement sequences for the purposes of attaining an action goal. Skills are learned and perfected as a result of practice and experience, with actions organized in advance of movement using a motor plan. They divide skills into three types. It's mostly important for coaches and not for us. It's important for esports medical professionals, so I'm just going to skip this. Then they go on to discuss the bodily functions behind aiming. So there are three parts of the brain that have major contributions towards aim training, which is the motor cortex, cerebellum and basal ganglia. They are responsible for larger and smaller coordinated movements, so small flicks, big flicks, micro flicks, etc. And when we perform something, the process starts from these parts of the brain through specific pathways called corticospinal tract to our brainstem, then to spine, then to muscles. It's described here that these structures adapt and change depending on the aim training routines being followed. So there is some physical change whenever you're training. This section divided the aim training methods. The primary mode of training is called the basic virtual training. Virtual training is where you use an application to train subsets of aim, that is tracking and click timing. And it's called primary because it trains the ability to aim through scenarios and exercises similar to the in-game environment. This method can be separated into two subtypes. The first is the peripheral control virtual training. This is where separate third-party programs like Kovacs is used to train the aim. This is mostly done to improve mouse control, clicking timing and tracking and other stuff. The other type, the esports specific virtual training, is basically Kovacs but in-game. Games like CS and Valorant have dedicated custom maps for training aim. So for CS, if you go to workshop, there are several training maps. Even Fortnite has some. These types of trainings use the physics as well as the in-game mechanics of the game, so it's quite useful. This was the primary mode where you can train virtually. The secondary mode of training is physical training, which is real-life exercises. It is used to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of the pathways. The pathways meaning the corticospinal tract. And it is used to support the changes in the brain structure from virtual training and also to make sure progress is not hindered due to injuries. Some physical training exercises are mentioned below, which I will not cover through. You can Google them if you want to know how it looks. Does this really work? Does performing these training categories really work? This was answered in the following section. According to them, when we perform any virtual aim training consistently, the nervous system improves. The pathways from brain to the muscle adapt and improve. Improvements in our aim is rooted in the theory of neuroplasticity the inherent ability of our brains and nervous system to adapt. When we consistently perform aim training and exercises, the following things occur, according to them. The theory of cortisol efficiency suggests that certain regions of the brain will have decreased activation level when performing and learning a motor skill. Essentially, making those movements requires less conscious decision as you keep training them. Less resources will be used by the pathway between brain and muscle. There has also been evidence to show that there is an increase in gray matter after consistent aim training. In simple efforts, as you keep training, your ability to do specific movements becomes more easier, and it's like it gets rooted in your subconscious memory or something. Like conscious decisions of those specific movements that you want to make will decrease, making it easier and smoother to do your tasks like clicking. The theory of long-term potentiation also would mean that the signals traveling to the muscles travel a lot quicker. So if there are consistent signals, which means consistent training, sent through the pathways, there is a better communication between the nerve cells. Essentially, the more you train, the more consistent you are, the more efficient you become in whatever actions you are performing, and this is backed up by science. You will be able to move a lot more easily without heavier decision making. It becomes less and less conscious and feels smoother, as I had mentioned before. The third improvement of aim training is discussed using the concept of selective recruitment and other theory stuff. Keep in mind, I'm not a biological expert, I'm just trying to explain what the article is stating. In muscles, there are fibers, some are slow fibers and some are fast fibers. And when you aim and train consistently, your body identifies which specific fibers to use for a specific scenario. So when you're doing fast flick, at first, if you have no experience in fast flicks, your body will give you, sometimes it may give you slow fibers to flick or fast fibers. So when you aim train consistently, your body will identify which specific fibers to use, slow or fast. Like fast flicks will require fast fibers, and only if you train consistently, those fibers will be used. This improves our accuracy, because for a specific given scenario, the body knows which specific fibers to use if you keep training. This was regarding virtual training. Physical training, where you perform actual exercises, also have good outcomes according to them. By performing physical exercises, your endurance to aim training increases. You can train for a longer time. Your body will also handle chemical and physical stress quicker. The second benefit of physical training involved another concept called proprioception. In essence, your brain will have better information of your arm, and it will help you control your mouse properly. And that's part 1. It's all about physical and mental effects. Does it work or not? In summary, you need to perform both physical and virtual training if you want the best improvement. And yes, it does work. It does improve, backed with scientific theories. Both muscles and the brain connections improve and adapt. Part 2 discusses some possible routines and divisions of aim training. And here's a brief description of part 2. First off, aim training is legitimate. They believe that aiming in a virtual environment is a neuromotor skill, and it is legitimate. Then they discuss the 3 phases that a human goes through to learn a specific skill, any skill. There are 3 phases, basically the noob phase, the amateur phase, and the pro phase. Noob is where you are completely new to the game. Like if you're moving from Dota to CS, you're completely new, so you're trying to understand the tasks involved, like clicking and tracking and some other stuffs mentioned here. I'm not going to go through all of them. The amateur phase is where you know the game mechanics and you have the knowledge of the game, but you're trying to implement and perfect them. And these tasks are done during this phase. The pro phase is where you are perfected mechanical skills and you are trying to improve your game sense. This is where you are an actual pro, like a professional player. Moving on, according to them, warming up is quite important. Even if you have achieved high level of mechanical skill, you should always have aim training and warm up in your mind. There are different ways you can aim train. You can use third-party programs like Kovacs along with Aimer7's routines to train. You can use custom maps in game, or you can play deathmatch. Of all the types, deathmatch offers the most realistic scenario for improvement in a specific game, because there are actual game mechanics, realistic player movement, and better crosshair position preparation. Kovacs and AimLab help challenge your static aim to a big extent, but in actual game there are many variables involved. Verticality, player movement, movement speed depending on distance, air strafing enemies, everything which is dependent on the game's sandbox, all of which can be trained only in deathmatch or competitive. But keeping in mind the constraints of deathmatch, they still offer different sets that you should be following as a specific category. Coming up, there is this training schedule as well, they said. The complete noob to the game, like iron players or players shifting from Dota, should follow this schedule where they aim train for only 15 minutes rather than 1 hour or something. So just aim train for 15 minutes, then take rest for 45 minutes, and then repeat and repeat. Now, I'm not sure if you can replace the resting period with like playing comp. I'm not sure about that, but according to this article, you need to aim train for 15 minutes and rest for 45 if you are a complete noob. The amateur and pro players should follow 45 minutes training and 15 minutes rest and repeat. This is because at the start of aim training, if you're completely new, it is quite difficult. Your muscles will soar quite fast, you will get frustrated quickly, and your developments are very slow compared to what you would be doing as a pro player or an amateur. There's 3 strategies to aim train routine. Following are the 3. The blocked order strategy, where you follow the certain scenarios one by one. So like if I do task A 3 times and then do task B 3 times and then do task C 3 times, in this order if you follow, that's called the blocked order strategy. The second strategy is the serial order strategy, where you first do the task A, then B, then C, and repeat it. A, B, C, A, B, C, A, B, C. So it's like a repeated playlist. The third strategy is where you do it in a completely random order, like A, B, C, C, B, C, B, A, something like that. Here's a table they recommend for aim training. A beginner should try the following schedule. A recovery schedule, so 15 minutes training and 45 minutes break. A repetition strat, so blocked order strat essentially, where you do one task X times, then second task X times, and so on. And for warming up and training, use Kovacs and don't rely on deathmatch. That's what they recommend for a completely beginner. Don't even do some custom games, just only Kovacs or AimLab. An amateur should follow the grind schedule, which I had discussed before, and sequential or random strategy. So sequential is 1 2 3, 1 2 3, 1 2 3. Random is just completely random. And you should use game-specific scenarios, so custom maps inside the game itself, or Kovac scenarios that are very close to the actual game scenarios. You should use these for warm-up and training as well. For a pro player, they should follow the grind schedule with random strat only, not sequential strat, and use deathmatch to warm up and follow game-specific scenarios or creative aim maps for training. In deathmatch, you test what you learn and you improve on that, but most of the times players don't research and consciously see what they are doing and adjust based on that. That's why aim training is really good. There's also discussion regarding mental practice and some part for like practice. Mental practice is where you review your words and see what you have done. I specified this multiple times. You always need to review your words. It's important. See what you could have done, see what you can do, put yourself in that situation and see what you would do now. Some stuff like that. The part whole practice is it's basically aim training, but training the fundamentals like vertical and horizontal aiming. And yeah, that's the entire article. According to them, aim training does work both inside your body and your brain. You have to be very consistent and follow a set strategy. If you want aim lab or Kovac routines that you want to follow, you should check out Aimer7's paper that I used to follow long back. The link will be in the description. Summary of this entire paper: yes, aim training does work. There are actual brain and muscle developments that are happening. You have to train physically and virtually for the best results. You can follow some strategies that they have provided to improve aim training efficiency as well. Since I'm very close to the amateur side rather than the noob side, I should try and apply amateur tactics. And I'm already aware of Aimer7's routines, so I usually follow them. I do not follow them consistently, so that's a big mistake. You need to follow aim routines quite consistently. And always aim train before playing. It's needed for your brain to maintain the adaptive structures. And yeah, I hope you all learned something useful, and I'll see you next time.